San Francisco, one of America's most notable cities. Landmarks like the Golden Gate Bridge, or Lombard Street, Alcatraz Island, and the California Academy of Sciences all contribute to the awesomeness of what makes San Francisco, San Francisco. However, there is one prevalent problem that San Francisco faces and that many local residents have to recognize almost daily. That would be the homeless population. Thousands of people on the streets begging for money and food. Some are yelling and screaming at passerbys and no one is there to help them. Homelessness in San Francisco has been a huge problem ever since the 70s, mostly due to the loss of jobs from deindustrialization, the spike in housing prices, and the lack of social welfare programs. As you delve deeper into San Francisco, you notice there is a significant portion of homeless people who have mental illnesses, and this is no coincidence. As President Nixon was at his seat in the White House, he decided to combat homelessness by defunding and shutting down many of the mental health clinics across the country. It didn't go exactly to his plan because the rate of people with mental illnesses that are homeless skyrocketed, far worse than it was before. After having thousands of new people on the street, many more problems arose. Primarily, the people who were wealthy enough to avoid being crushed by the crisis weren't too fond of the situation other San Francisco citizens were in. So, they decided to respond by removing places for homeless people to sleep, like benches, barring off overhangs at night, and building fences in hopes that it would remove the homelessness problem. Miraculously, it didn't work.
Just say your name again.
My name is Kirsten Nash.
And so how many times were you homeless and each time for how long?
I have been homeless twice in my life. The first time I was homeless for over a year. The second time I was homeless for 6 months. I am a recovering alcoholic. And at the time I was drinking a lot and I couldn't hold down a job. And my mother took my children and I lived on the streets of San Rafael. And trying to get into a shelter is really hard, especially if you're a woman, because shelters don't feel very safe when you're a woman. So that was really hard. I had a lot of interactions with mentally ill people. I feel like a good percentage of homeless people are mentally ill. They kind of fall into 3 categories. They're either mentally ill, they're drug addicts, or they're vets. Mentally ill seems to take up a large portion of our homeless. And so I have interactions with people that were, some days they were really good and some days they were really bad. And I watched police take away people because they didn't know what to do. At that point, my son was 6 months old and my daughter was 7. We went to live in the homeless shelter on Mission and Grand in San Rafael. It's a family shelter, and it took us about 6 months to get in there. During that time, I also got support services through the welfare office. I was able to get a degree in early childhood, and I was able to get a job as a preschool teacher because I had housing and I had a way to get to and from my job, and my children finally had a home so I could get a job. And from there I eventually I was on a waiting list for Section 8 housing for almost 10 years, and then eventually we got into Section 8 housing, so that's how even today I have Section 8. So
you touched on it, but what do you do today? How have you turned your life around? How are you really thrive?
I feel like everything is different in my life today. I'm, an active member of my community. I'm active in my children's lives. I'm able to do the things that normal people do. I had great parents. I grew up in a great family here in Marin, but because of my circumstances and the choices that I made, I ended up homeless. And once you're in that kind of perpetual cycle, it's really hard to break. We had to wait for 6 months, so I think that some more support services should be put into place. That being said, the company that I work for now, Bright Horizons, just finished building a space for children, what we call Bright Space, in the second family shelter that just opened up in Hamilton Air Force Base. So I kind of felt like I was able to give back, like I helped build this space for children in a homeless shelter, and I was once in that shelter 25 years ago. So I feel like it's really come full circle for me. My parents both have, college educated master's degrees. I went to college, I had a degree. I think people think that homeless people are dirty. They try really hard to be clean. It's not easy to clean up in a gas station bathroom. I just think that a lot of the mentally ill, unfortunately, are on the streets either for one reason or another. Their living situations aren't currently working for them. It's a very complex system. There's not one good solution. Being homeless is not nice. You know, I used to say I was houseless because I had my children and I felt like I was providing them a home, but we didn't have a home. You know, now we've had a home, and I think it's made a real difference in my kid's life. San Francisco police officers and Marin County police officers are very well trained to dealing with mentally ill specifically, and then the homeless population in general. So it's quite a system. It's very complicated. You know, we had a president once who was when he was president, he did away with all the care for mentally ill people. So that's why we're in this position.
My biggest thing with it is like you can't just wrap it around homelessness, right? Because homelessness is one thing, and there's a lot of people who don't have a home, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean they're living on the street. You just can't wrap it around that. You have to keep it in individual, right? You're an individual, and when I make contact with you, I figure out what's going on with you personally. And then we try to see how can we best help you. Do we need to get you back to your support system, right? Do you need medical, right? What is it that we can do to help you? Do I need to refer you to adult protection, right? What other issues are going on? And I think once you start to deal with people on a case-by-case basis, you start to understand a little bit more that homelessness isn't always the issue. There's other issues that lead up to being homeless. We have to take some self-accountability and at some point do things for ourselves too. Even if it's just the small things, but we have to do things for ourselves. Mm-hmm. The government should help. I think that everybody has different issues, and because of that, you can't curtail it to specific needs, right? Like the government should try to offer services, and then if people choose not to go into those services because that's their right, they don't have to do it unless they're ordered to do it, right? So if they choose not to do it, then, I mean, it puts the city in a tough spot, right? The resources are there for you if you so choose to use them. So, but I do think that we have to hold people accountable too at the same time, right? Like, I can't let you just do whatever you want and let you use an excuse because of your situation. That is why you're still continuing to do that. That's not progressive at all, right? So I think that the government should help, but they can't do it all. We can't rely on the government to do everything. We have to take some self-accountability and at some point do things for ourselves too. Even if it's just the small things, but we have to do things for ourselves. Mm-hmm. We have to take some self-accountability and at some point do things for ourselves too. Even if it's just the small things, but we have to do things for ourselves. Mm-hmm.